Those of you who have taken the refuge vows for the first time should know you take refuge into the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. At the same time, when you take refuge, it has become sort of general today to simplify refuge. And even in your booklet here, I was reading this morning, and I find the introduction saying, what we talk about refuge sounds as though we are talking about taking shelter in something external, but that in which we take our refuge is really something inner, the essence, inner essence of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Now, sounds right. It is true. But those of you who take refuge for the first time should also know that you do take refuge into the external Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. The whole aspect of the Dharma should never be turned into something so abstract as to not be challenging to you. The reason why you become a Buddha or a Buddhist or turn into engaging in Buddha Dharma should never be allowed to being so convenient for you. Everything cannot be made convenient to you. Convenient to your understanding, convenient to your time, convenient to your culture, convenient to your tastes, convenient to your possibilities and impossibilities. It cannot be allowed to be made convenient. That's not the purpose of Dharma. Dharma's purpose is to make it challenging. It has to be that thing that you dislike doing the most. And it's true. Those who say things like, oh, this is something I cannot understand, must realize that's it. That's what it was meant to be. If things could be done easily and most conveniently, why would one talk about uprooting laziness or distraction or desire or self-cherishing attitude or self-absorption? Therefore, for those of you, now later on when you come to all the profound teachings and so forth, the point here made that the actual refuge is the inner refuge. I talked about it yesterday, so that's how we go about things. But those of you who are taking it today, starting new, should know there is someone who is endowed with qualities far more superior to you, to whom you then take refuge and aspire, generate the aspiration to emulate the example of. If you can come just close to having some of the qualities of that Buddha, that itself is an extraordinary achievement. And so think in that way, that it's not only just an external approach, but the Buddha that you take refuge into is the external Buddha, and that there is the need to understand it's not different from your own essential nature. But sometimes I think people take on the essential nature prematurely. That's like a 12-year-old wanting to go out and find out the world on its own. You know, as a parent, wouldn't you get worried? Yes, when you're 18 and when you're over that and when you do have some kind of sense of maturity and reach adulthood, yes, we allow children to then go out and discover life on their own. But when an 11-year-old says that, there are some smart children who do say that. I can take care of my life. But as a parent, one wouldn't know whether the wisdom that one has is mature enough to make the right decisions. It is about the same way. One has to care for oneself as one would care for one's own child. Your mind is like that. And therefore, out the inner essence Buddha is there, but prematurely it could be so abstract that it wouldn't have the possibility to recognize it, and in that regard it would, if simultaneously it's disregarding the emulation and the inspiration of good qualities seen in the outer Buddha, then that's damaging your own progress and your own growth. So taking refuge is taking refuge into the Buddha, the teacher from whom the teachings come. Taking refuge into the Dharma is the three Pitaka Sutra, Vinaya and Abhidhamma teachings that are going to help us recognize our own innate nature. Sangha that you take refuge into is not the ordinary Sangha at this point. The Sangha that you take refuge into is the Sangha of those who have walked the path and have actually exemplified the realization through their own understanding and recognition and experience. Therefore, it is into the Sangha of accomplished bodhisattvas into whom you take refuge. Now, in terms of having taken refuge, then, as the text itself says, after taking refuge in the Buddha, one should not take ultimate refuge in any worldly references. And therefore, there is nothing wrong with worldly deities or worldly gods. Many people mistaken it to be understanding of you cannot go to a church or you cannot go to another temple or so on and so forth. That's not the point here. Point here is you cannot take refuge in anything that is going to motivate you to generating something mundane in your mind. And so worldly deities are said to be worldly for what reasons? Because the aspiration with which a person relates to is very mundane. Long life, wealth, good fortune, good circumstances, maybe heaven, your name in the good books. It could be anything. But they are, from a Buddhistic perspective, seen as something that is very temporary, and therefore relating to that, being relating to mundane aspiration. Therefore, as a Buddhist, having walked or having decided, committed yourself to walking on the path of training your own mind to go beyond self-attachment. Therefore, it is said, after taking refuge in the Buddha, one should not take ultimate refuge in worldly deities. Secondly, after taking refuge in the Dharma, one should refrain from harming any sentient beings, especially intentionally. Thirdly, after taking refuge in the Sangha, one should not associate with people who negatively influences one's path. And that's again very, very important to keep in mind. If you think you are strong enough to withstand the influences of what others tell you, such a person can make friends with anyone. Such as that, as a person at the level of Vajrayana is said to have that freedom, is that you take as your friends everybody. That's part of a Vajrayana Samaya. When it is at this level where you are just beginning to learn, you have to also address one crucial point, and that is to see how fragile or how influential or not your mind is. If your mind is still very fragile, and fragile in what sense? Fragile in its awareness, fragile in its wakefulness, fragile in its perseverance, fragile in its devotion, fragile in its determination, then because it is so fragile, it needs some time to be cared for. So here the fault is not of the others. The fault is the sensitiveness of your own mind, the rawness of your own mind. That needs to be given time to gain strength, and then you can be more, when you're more confident of your own stability of mindfulness, then engaging in any kind of friendship is very fine. But this particular thing has to be kept in mind, and this is especially good for people who go out and try to change other people before they are changed themselves. So, fourthly, then one should respect all images of the Buddhas as though they are the Buddha himself. Fifthly, one should respect every letter of every Dharma scripture because it is from them that we understand and realize the Dharma. Sixthly, one should respect the Sangha, both the noble Sangha of Bodhisattvas, Sangha of practitioners, Sangha of monastic, never thinking or speaking ill of them. One should respect any symbol of the Sangha, such as the monastic robes, as being equally important. Now, these three are very essential disciplines for anyone who has taken refuge. Every image of the Buddha or Buddhistic image must be regarded as the Buddha himself. Every letter, alphabet, and here it says Dhamma scriptures, but our teachers used to say every written form must be regarded as the Dhamma. And every even patch of yellow, anything, even on a paper, should be regarded as the Sangha, requiring respect, requiring immediate, tremendous sense of awareness of it being a symbol of the three jewels. And if a Buddha walked in, or if there was the true Dharma being given, how much respect would you have? You'd give this equal amount of respect. And that's not, again, because of the object itself. It's about The symbols of every such thing is a reminder for one's own self. It reminds you immediately. And that's very true. For us, for example, monastics, monks, and nuns, every part of our ritual is a reminder. How we fold our robes, how we wear them, when we wear them, how do we think, when we take them off, how do we think, the different layers that we have, and the kind of sort of layers that it should be representing when we make prostrations, when we pick up our Zen. All of these are then taught to be reminders. Folds remind you of the Four Noble Truths or the Two Truths or the Six Paramitas or whatever it is. These are all symbolic. We call them ritualistic. That's a wrong interpretation. It's about skillfully surrounding yourself with as many reminders as possible. And you ask yourself the question, do you need reminders or don't you need reminders? If you don't need reminders, then it's okay. Forget about it. Then even refuge is not necessary. But if you think you need reminders, then you ask the second question, how many would you like? And then the ratio of how many reminders you would like should be more. And if not more, at least equal to the amount of distractions that are there. So then you would have to count how many distractions can occur in a day, and to counteract that, how many reminders would you need? That's why we surround ourselves with all this. You cannot escape. If you know how to use this, you cannot escape. When you look at a text you're about to jump across, and you stop yourself, it's a brilliant way to hold your mind. It's not about, you're free to jump as you like. And the book will definitely not resist and say, oh, you jumped over me. But what it does do is it gracefully tells a meditator to hold your body respectfully. That one little bit more aggressive physical or a verbal or an unaware mind could be held back by a simple picture or a syllable or a color is one of the most beautiful, graceful, skillful ways in which we support, through all these rituals and through all these methods, the wakefulness of one's own awareness. And it is a very realistic and it's a very humble approach to accepting the stormy waves of one's own neurosis and how one's awakenedness has to withstand that stormy wind of distraction. So because of that, these are the 6 different disciplines that are given by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as the disciplines of having taken refuge. Furthermore, to this Atisha then says, one should not let go of the 3 jewels for the benefit or for the manipulating it for one's own mundane benefit, such as if one is offered a kingdom and so forth, then to manipulate that or letting go of one's own refuge. One should not also let go of the refuge vows to the 3 jewels, even if one is in the danger of losing one's life. Similarly, one should not take refuge in another view of mind and phenomena that contradicts the Buddhist view of emptiness. Fourthly, one should know the nature of the object of the refuge. One must deepen one's understanding to know what is the outer meaning of the Buddha Dharma and the Sangha, what is the inner meaning of the Buddha Dharma and the Sangha, and what is the secret meaning of the Buddha Dharma and the Sangha. And fifthly, one should bow to the images of the 3 jewels, making offerings to them daily, and if possible, keeping a shrine as an object of reverence wherever one is or wherever one lives. So these are the 5 additional points that have been added by then Atisha as for those who have taken refuge vows.